Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm.
Hey, this is Eric with 30x40 Design Workshop with a heads up that all of my content will be streaming on Gābl Media. Starting October 7th, you can head on over to gablmedia.com/video to check it out.
Hi everyone, my name is Steven and I am the creator of Show It Better. And I'm glad to announce that Show It Better is now streaming on Gābl Media. Visit gablmedia.com/video to catch up on our full catalog.
My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to EntreArchitect podcast, where each and every week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This is episode 345, the critical legal issues every small firm architect needs to know, with New York City construction law attorney Robert Herrmann. This episode of EntreArchitect podcast is supported by our platform sponsors. ARCAT, the online resource delivering quality building material information, CAD details, BIM specifications, and so much more, all for free. Gusto, easy online payroll benefits, and HR built for modern small businesses like ours. And Monograph, the time tracking and project management tool built for architects by architects. Robert Herrmann, welcome to EntreArchitect podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Mark. I look forward to speaking with you and appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. This legal issues and risk management are topics that come up occasionally in our community of small firm architects, but I think it's often neglected in architecture until it's too late, right? I think architects don't like to talk about risk management and legal issues until they need to. And then when they need to, it's too late. And so I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I think we may inspire some architects to pay attention and make some corrections, or maybe do some preparation in order to avoid some situations in the future. So before we have that conversation, let me introduce you to our listeners. Robert is a principal at the law firm Offit Kurman, based in New York City. He's the chair of the firm's New York construction law practice. He represents and acts as general counsel to a number of architects and other design professionals and construction professionals, advising them on general business matters and representing them in litigation, arbitration, and mediation. Robert is a member of the Professional Practice Committee of the American Institute of Architects in New York, the New York chapter. He's trained in mediation and is on the American Arbitration Association panel of construction mediators. He also serves as a mediator for the New York State Supreme Court Commercial Division. He's an adjunct professor at Columbia University School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, where he teaches advanced professional practice to third-year master's students. So this is a man that has a lot of information for us. He's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So Robert, I shared a little bit about you and what you do and what you've been doing. What we do here at EntreArchitect podcast is we start off with our guest's origin story. I'd love for you to just dig a little deep and dive into your story about what inspired you to do what you do, and share the moment from where you discovered that passion to where you find yourself today.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I stumbled into my law practice representing primarily design professionals and others in the construction world. I was with a law firm back in the 1980s that happened to represent, at that time, a very large Canadian developer, Olympia, New York, that was doing a lot of projects in New York City and around the world and country. And the firm, even though they were 6 lawyers, was their construction counsel. So I really got to learn a lot about construction, working with the design team and the contractors. And then had the good fortune of having a good friend who became the managing partner at Robert Stern Architects firm. And he hired me to become their outside counsel. And that relationship lasted about 25 years. But out of that, I began to meet other architects, and I realized actually that I had a passion for architecture. I think I always enjoyed the traveling and going and seeing old buildings and new architecture buildings, but never realized quite the passion that I had for it. And so over the years, my practice has just grown through referrals of a lot of small firms, not always all small, but I seem to work with a lot of firms of a couple of people, helping them get started, see them grow. And I now find myself, really interested in architecture, and I have developed I've done a lot of teaching. I've been teaching 4 years now at Columbia, third-year master's students in an advanced practice course. And I've been invited into 4 or 5 other schools in the New York City area to provide
lectures or seminars, more discussion seminars on the risk management topics usually. And I now find myself happy to go to any city in this country and look at old buildings and find I could walk around any city, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and be very happy just looking at the architecture. So and then I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to be asked to write a book, which is called Law for Architects, What You Need to Know. And that's been used in a lot of schools, and firms have used it as a resource. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity to give back to the profession in any way I can through my teaching efforts or working with the Professional Practice Committee at the AIA chapter in New York. So whenever I can do something to give back to the profession that I really have come to really enjoy and love, I'm happy to do that.
Well, thank you. I thank you for contributing to the profession and joining me here today. Law for Architects is the book. So you should go buy that and get that on your shelf. First thing you should do, you listeners. And so I wanted to, we've talked before offline, off the podcast, and got to know each other a little bit. And, I wanted to invite you on the show. Our friend Drew Lang introduced us, and through our conversation, I wanted to invite you on the podcast here to talk about legal issues. And I didn't really know which legal issues we should be talking about, what was the most relevant to small firms. And you were talking about managing risk through managing client expectations, which was not what I expected you to say. I figured we'd dive right into some, legal contracts and all of that kind of thing. And you were very specific about that. And so I wanted to invite you here and talk about that. So what is your thought on how best small firm architects, which is our community, how best they could stay out of legal trouble? What are some of the ways they can manage their risk as they move forward in their practice?
Well, I think I look at risk management really several different ways. One is obviously just avoid it by not taking a project. I've had clients that, they've offered a condominium tower. They've never done it before. Do they want to take that risk? It'd be something new and maybe get them into a market they don't have. And then there's obviously managing, through contract negotiation, the legal provisions that the AIA provides, and then others that we recommend that aren't necessarily in the AIA contracts. And then, of course, there's the risk management, which is also a problem during CA, and how do you manage during construction administration, avoiding risk. But I think that the way I've over the years looked at this is that, contracts can have all the wonderful provisions you want, and you have a lot of legal provisions that support you, maybe some that don't, but I think it really begins with being able to manage the expectation of your clients as to what you're going to do and not do. And this is particularly true for small firms. You're very often taking on a project for a client that never has done a project that's of the particular size and scope. It may be their first house, their first apartment renovation. And I think in that situation, those clients have expectations that often are not met by architects, because they think architects are going to do everything for them. They're going to be their eyes and ears. They're going to be there. They're going to watch over the contractor, oversight, and see everything and catch everything. And I think it's really important to early on establish a communication with the client and go through. If they've never done a project, you need to sit down with them at some point and talk about, well, this is how the design phase is going to work, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to need your approvals at this phase and that phase, and talk about the construction administration phase. You may want to explain to them what a shop drawing is, because you may be presenting an invoice for reviewing a shop drawing, and they may say, what is this? I had no idea you'd spend 5 hours doing shop drawing review. I don't even know what you're talking about. And also explain your site visits and the application for payment process, how change orders would be managed, and also talk about the project closeout issues. In other words, what's going to be involved in getting the project closed out. They may think that once it's done, they can move right in, but maybe there's a C of O they have to get that might take time. So I think the critical thing is communication, and I think it's a theme that runs through the entire process. And as I said, you have a contract, and it could be, a very solid contract. But if you don't communicate with the client from day one, and I think also in a very honest way, I think it's really critical to be honest with the client. I think I see problems where you want to accommodate the client, so the client will say, yes, I'd like to spend, $500,000 on this renovation, and based on the program that the owner has given you, that there's no way it can be done for that. Yet you want the project, so you sort of hesitate to say no. And then later on, you find that the owner really only did have 500,000, and you gave them a design for $1 million because you wanted to accommodate all of their beautiful ideas and your beautiful designs. And so I think being honest and communicating throughout is one way, outside of all the contracts you might have, to really avoid a risk. And I think also admitting that if you make a mistake, not just to try to start pointing fingers, or if there are problems, rather than point fingers at somebody else, I think it's helpful to try and come up with creative solutions.
So Robert just gave us a checklist. So rewind and note down all those things that we should be doing step after, step by step, because Robert literally just gave you a checklist that you can write down and make sure that you're going through each one of those items and making sure that you understand how that process works and that you're clearly communicating that process each step of the way with your clients. We will return to our conversation after this quick break to say thank you to our platform sponsors here at EntreArchitect, ARCAT, Gusto, and Monograph. Unless you're working for one of the top architecture firms in the world, you know what it's like to work with limited resources. But there's one resource that you can access no matter what size your architecture firm: ARCAT.com. ARCAT is the online solution for your building product information needs. They offer BIM objects, CAD details, specifications, and much, much more from leading manufacturers from all over the world. Research building products and get the information you need all in the same place, fast and easy. And best of all, it's free. ARCAT doesn't charge you anything for these resources. You don't even need to register or give them your email. And when I say it's free, there's no catch. Visit ARCAT.com and try it out. Search for the resources that you need, and ARCAT will deliver. That's ARCAT.com. That's ARCAT.com. ARCAT.com. Build better. Taking care of your employees has never been more important than now. For years, Gusto's been helping more than 100,000 small business owners run payroll, offer benefits, onboard new employees, and more. They call it the People Platform. And it doesn't just look nice, and it does look nice. It also works. Your payroll taxes are filed, deductions are calculated, and your team gets paid. You can even offer health insurance and 401ks as you grow. As a listener of the EntreArchitect podcast, you will get 3 months free after your first payroll when you go to EntreArchitect.com/gusto. That's EntreArchitect.com/gusto. And make sure that you let them know that you're a member of the EntreArchitect community. Gusto, the People Platform. Visit EntreArchitect.com/gusto today. Are you tired of spreadsheets? Of using spreadsheets to keep track of your project plans, your budgets, your staff, your time? Spreadsheets. Our friends at Monograph know what that's like because they're architects too. They know all about that spreadsheet mess that you're dealing with. So they did something about it. Monograph is a time tracking and project management tool built for architects by architects to respond to the challenges that small and medium-sized firms face on their quest to a profitable business. With Monograph's integrated suites of tools, you'll stay on track and on budget without the overhead of wrangling spreadsheets every day. Improve your firm's operations today. Try Monograph for free at EntreArchitect.com/monograph. Ditch the spreadsheets. Visit EntreArchitect.com/monograph and try Monograph today for free. ARCAT, Gusto, and Monograph. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. One of the questions I have, Bob, is with that list that you just went through, is that a conversation that we have prior to signing agreements or following our signing of agreements? When do we do that?
I think if you can, when you're first meeting with the client and you're getting close to negotiating a contract, it doesn't hurt to have that discussion, as much of that discussion as you can have, because to some extent, they're going to get a contract, and some of these owners will never read it, and they may sign it, and they won't really know what's in there. And when you go later on to rely on that provision, they're going to say, well, why didn't you explain this to me at the beginning when I've never done this project like this. Why didn't you tell me about this? So I think that the earlier you can do this kind of conversation, I think the better off you'll be in terms of managing the clients, setting and managing their expectations.
Yeah, I often, in my practice, I'll use the contract to have that conversation. As I review the contract, we use that sort of as our guide to have that conversation. So we'll go through each provision, and then we'll sort of explain what that provision means and how it's going to work and who's responsible for what and when and all that.
I think that's a very interesting idea. I would say that I don't think any of my clients have ever done that I know of, because I think they're afraid to sit down with an 18-page B101 and show it to the owner, and then show a provision that has 27 additional service provisions in it. I think that most of them will not want to do that. So, but I think it's an interesting idea, and I'll certainly suggest it to some of my clients going forward.
Yeah, we do additions and alterations for residential, and we developed our own agreement with our attorney and our insurance company over the years, and so it's a little bit more user friendly, which is why I built it that way, than the AIA contract. Similar protection, but it's a way that when they read it, they understand what they're reading. Because
we've developed for a lot of our clients letter agreements with standard terms and conditions that we attach. And I think it is much more user-friendly on certain kinds of projects. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's similar to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying the other thing that I stress on in talking to our clients, and that is that they're in a business, and they need to act as business people in negotiations. In other words, they are not only practicing architecture as a profession, but they're running a business. And so I think if you come across as a business person, taking seriously the business side of the practice, I think you gain respect from your clients. And I think that's something that's lost often because architects are a little afraid to take on their clients. They don't want to negotiate. They think they'll lose the project because they charge a fee. They propose a fee. They think they don't want to charge a certain fee because they think they won't get the project. And I usually say, worst case is the owner, if they want to hire you, presumably they do, they'll negotiate it. But don't necessarily start off thinking that you can't propose something because they're going to reject it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you present yourself as a professional and you manage those expectations and you go through the process that may be full of fear on both sides, right? You had mentioned, Bob, that many architects don't go through that process with an agreement because they're afraid to identify some of those provisions that need to be discussed, right? And so if you do that, you do earn that respect. And that respect often leads to trust, which provides the opportunity to design your greatest work when you have a client who's trusting in your skills and they clearly understand what your role and what your responsibility is.
I think that the problem, I agree that trust is critical. And I also think that once trust is lost, if the owner doesn't trust you anymore, or the contractor doesn't trust you, or you don't trust the contractor or owner, I think it's really hard to ever get it back.
Right.
It's very difficult to reclaim a trust that you had at the beginning. So.
Yeah, and you had.
I also think it's important that architects, particularly in small firms, understand the insurance aspects of not only their insurance, but what contractors and owners need to carry. So I think that's another part of what I spend a fair amount of time with clients is trying to help them understand owners, builders, risk insurance policies and why that's important, being additionally insured on contractors' insurance policies, understanding what their professional liability coverage covers and doesn't cover, and why they can't agree to certain terms in their agreement. Well, if they agree, they will not have insurance. That's a good basis to try and negotiate those provisions out when the owners propose them. But I think that's a whole other area of where I think there's a lot of effort can be made to educate people on the insurance aspects of the practice.
You had also mentioned, Bob, early in your conversation with me here is the responsibilities of an architect. That often there's an expectation that we are going to provide certain services that are not really our role or responsibility, and we don't clarify that, and then it blows up, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm just dealing right now with an architect, and the owner is saying, "You didn't oversee the contractor. You didn't see him do this. You didn't see him do that." And there's a contract provisions that make it pretty clear that that's not the architect's role, but the owner still expected that. And the other issue, is whether in those situations do the architects convey the wrong message in terms of what they are doing, because they want to accommodate the client. So maybe they take on more responsibility than they should to make the project go faster and smoother, or to make the client happy, and approve payment applications that shouldn't be approved because they know the contractor, we got to keep them working. So I think that it's really important that those discussions be had, and that you not overstep your role and then be accused of not having the proper oversight.
Yeah, you know us very well, Bob. Us architects, because we do that often, right? Especially small firms. All we want to do is make our clients happy. And so very often we will go above and beyond, thinking that we're providing this amazing service. But from their point of view, they think that because you're doing it, they think it's your responsibility and your role. And they don't realize that you're working above and beyond because you did not communicate that to them, that this is additional, that this is out of the ordinary.
And there's a number of times that I see where clients provided substantial additional services and never seek payment. They think, well, why,
Right.
I'm not going to rock the boat. And then there's some issue later with the client, and they say, well, can I bill them for these additional services? Because now the client is withholding money from me. And that's a difficult thing to be able to say, well, yes, you can, but that was 2 years ago, and you never told them it was additional. I don't think you're going to get those fees. And I think that, again, that goes to being afraid of your client.
Right.
And you really can't be afraid of your client. There's no reason to be afraid of your client.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned very early on as a young architect. We had very early, we had a great residential project, full whole house renovation, $1 million budget, 29-year-old architects. My wife and I are partners. It was a dream job. And all we wanted to do was provide the best service we could, right? And so we went above, and we literally delivered laundry for the client. There was a crisis and she needed her laundry moved. That's the level of service that we were providing. And we never I communicated that it was above and beyond, and they just assumed that that was our role. That our role, not that we were a delivery service, but our role was to do anything that needed to be done to make sure the project went smoothly. And it blew up. It didn't work out the way we had hoped it would.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot. And then the architects have the deep pockets generally with the insurance. The contractors don't have the deep pockets with their insurance, and so that's why some claims arise.
Yeah, I've had that happen as well, where a client and a contractor had a conflict. The contractor did not provide the services that they were supposed to, made some mistakes, didn't follow the drawings that they needed to follow, and ended up in a situation where the client sued the contractor, and we got pulled right into that lawsuit with it, right? The attorney took us both, right? And luckily our agreements and our due diligence and prior and doing a lot of this risk management did protect us. specifically our agreement protected us. But our documentation keeping, right? We kept great records. We learned that lesson early and made the corrections later in our careers to make sure those things never happened. And that was a really scary moment when we got that letter saying that we were part of a lawsuit. And luckily, our agreement and our preparation and a great attorney took care of it pretty easily, and we weren't even involved we were dismissed because of our preparation. And so
I think one area of problems that I often see is just budgeting. In other words, providing the client with honest budgets, and then keeping them informed when the owner wants to make all these changes, telling the owner, well, this is going to cost you more money. Again, that's a discussion that clients don't like to have. They like to think that they'll just do the design and the owner will have the money. So again, it's communication, I think, is the theme.
Yeah, the communication is critical, and like you said, managing expectations of what role is whose role is what, and if you make that a system, if you put together that in a document of some sort or a checklist, it makes it very easy to communicate all of these things that we're talking about. Like I said, this is a checklist. You can go through this, rewind this whole episode, and make notes and say, oh, I have to do that, I have to do that, I have to do that. And instead of trying to remember to have these conversations, just make yourself a checklist and say, okay, I need to have this conversation, I need to have this conversation. And you can create a document that you use as part of your process of it could be part of your sales process, it could be part of your negotiation process. Wherever you want to put it is where it should be. But clearly communicating the roles, the responsibilities, clearly communicating that when there is an additional service, right? Because that's one of the things that we learned is that when we do those additional services, that we need to have a process to communicate that role, that that additional service as additional, right? Before you do the work, and say, we have an additional service change order that we use that say, okay, we're adding additional services. This is what it's going to cost. This is what we're expecting to do. We have them sign it. And then when the bill shows up, there's no question. And if I wanted to do like I did early on as a young architect, if I wanted to provide some additional services for free, I could do that. But what I do is I document that in the document and say that I'm going to waive those fees. And then when the invoice goes out, that service is on the invoice with a credit next to it. So I bill for it, and then I provide a credit and I waive the fee that I show them. So they see that we did the service, we show a value next to that service, and then we show that we've done it for free. And that clearly communicates that we've had a role, that we've had a responsibility, that you could have paid for it, but we're giving it away. And then if we end up in a situation like you said, Bob, where that we have a conflict later where the client's not charging us, now we have all that documentation to show that we waived those fees, that we can come back and say, well, we actually earned those fees. You can pay us for those fees now.
Well, I think that owners don't understand how much effort architects put into a project.
Right.
They have no idea of the time that is put into these projects. And I think being able to document that for clients so they understand what the effort is also part of the process, so they appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Bob, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate the checklist because I think that's going to be very helpful. Everybody can kind of go through it and make sure we're managing expectations well in order to manage our risk. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you the one question, Bob, that I ask everybody here at EntreArchitect Podcast is, what is one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
I think what they could do, I would say, is it just one thing?
That's the question, but if you wanted to provide more, you could do that.
No, I think it's communicating with your client in an honest and truthful manner, and really making clear what your role is and what your role isn't, but in a way that's a friendly way to discuss what you're doing so they understand, and then hopefully it'll be reflected in a reasonable and fair contract. But communication, if you can't communicate honestly with your client, the project's not going to go well. So that would be the one thing that I would stress is practice, if necessary, how you communicate to your client with respect to what you're doing. So it comes across in a user-friendly way.
Right. It's often that we try to avoid pain, right, through doing things that we're afraid to do, which ultimately ends up in a lot more pain, right? And so if we go through this process up front and we get good at it, right, if, like what Bob said, if we practice this process of communicating and managing expectations, it gets better, it gets easier, we become less fearful of doing it, and then ultimately the project goes much smoother. If you avoid this because you're afraid to do it, because it's painful, it's something that we don't really want to do, very often it will blow up and it will become something that's way more painful than the awkward conversation that you might have up front. And like Bob said, if you have this conversation and the client is reacting in a very negative way, that's a red flag, right? This process of communicating back and forth and understanding the provisions of an agreement, if you're having a really tough time, a really difficult conversation and a negotiation process, that's going to translate to the rest of the project. Years more work and pain of working with a complicated contract and a complicated client. And so often this is a way for you to, if it is a negative process, you have the ability to say, well, this isn't going to work out. We're not going to do this project, and avoid this situation altogether.
Know your client. And the earlier you know your client, the better off. And if you ever have to go actually look at the contract, then you probably have a problem. So.
Exactly right. His name is Robert Herrmann, 2 R's, 2 N's. We'll have all of his information on the show notes. The web, you can go visit his website, offitkurman.com. It's Offit, OFFITKURMAN.com. Robert, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you for spending some time with us here and helping us sort of manage our risks through managing our client expectations. Thanks for joining us here today at EntreArchitect Podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You've been listening to episode 345 with Robert Herrmann, talking about critical legal issues every small firm architect should know. These are critical issues that every small firm architect should know. So if you know an architect who doesn't know what we just talked about, or you think that might be helpful, send this link to a friend. It's EntreArchitect.com/episode 345. That's the link to share. That's the link for the show notes. EntreArchitect.com/episode 345. EntreArchitect is proud to be part of the largest, most engaged AEC multimedia network on the planet. Gābl Media, curated thought leadership for an audience dedicated to building a better world. Listen and subscribe to all the shows at GāblMedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And check out EntreArchitect Academy membership. It's ready to edit business resources. It's live monthly training. It's supportive architecture community is there for you, all waiting for you at EntreArchitect Academy membership. Learn more and enroll right now at EntreArchitect.com/join. My friends, be well, be healthy, be happy, be safe, secure. Thank you for listening. Love, learn, and share what you know. Have a great week.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gābl Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gābl Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gābl Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gābl Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.